Hello and welcome, I'm Arumba, thank you for joining me. This is Arumba's Adjustments. This is the first time I've done a video like this, but basically what I wanted to do was take all of the ideas and suggestions that have kind of come up over the course of hundreds of hours of gameplay, either in multiplayer or single player, and then just kind of list them in a way that maybe, hopefully, Paradox can listen to and maybe make a few changes to the game that will make it better. These are not gameplay mechanic type changes, these are interface adjustments. These are ways to make the game more approachable and easier for the player to make decisions and just a better game. Again, I'm not trying to touch on like, hey, they should change the way that revolts work, or, I mean, they did do that, but it's not about changing their game, it's about just making it easier to access. So, without further ado, in no particular order, we're just going to go through, there are 12 in this video, and I'm just going to go through them one by one. So, let's get started. Number 12. So this one is something that I've been asking for a few months, and I still don't quite understand how it's possible that it could have been missed. A while back, and I think patch 1.6 it may have been, they added the interface on here where you could see not only the 2 stars to represent how strong a general is in combat, but also in the tooltip, you'll notice it says leader 3341. You can actually see the leader's stats before you go into combat. Now, before they made this change, you had to go into the ledger. You had to go to the world's best leaders, best leader in the world, sort by country, find the character, and then you could see their pips. Now, when they added it in for army leaders, again, I don't know why they did not do it for naval leaders. So if you have a naval leader appointed, you can see here we have a 021, you cannot see his pips when you hover over this tooltip. You can, for some reason, in 1.8 they added in the stars, so you can see that he's a 1-star general or admiral, but we still can't see the pips. So change number 1 would be to make it so that not only can you see the leader pips for land, but also for the sea. It only makes sense. Why should we have to go and look through the ledger for naval leaders, but not have the ability, but not have to do that for everything else? That is number 12. Change number 11. So, in 1.8, Paradox made a fantastic change to the revolt risk summation here. This is a request that I had made that I'm really glad to have seen added to the game. Notice how it says unrest 0.0, but then in parentheses it says negative 0.54%. So you can see the summation of the positive and negative modifiers in the tooltip, which helps out quite a bit. Now, number 11 in the changes would be to do the same thing for religious conversion speed. When we look at religious conversion speed here, we can see that the missionary will have a total conversion speed of 2.4%, which is the summation of all numbers. However, if the number is negative, it just shows 0. It does not show how close you are to being able to start converting a province. Again, I don't see any reason why it's difficult to just say, you're at negative 0.5%. If you take this one decision, which increases your conversion speed by 1%, then you'll be at 0.5. It's very easy to do the math yourself that way. As it is right now, we have to manually add up each of the numbers, which is tedious and takes time, and it doesn't serve any practical purpose for the game. So change number 11, to reiterate, is to just make it so that the summation of monthly conversion speed is constant. Don't just do it when it's positive, do it all the time so that we can see whether or not we are close. Change number 10. When you take the idea group exploration ideas and you unlock this idea right here, quest for the new world, it allows you to recruit explorers and conquistadors. Now, at least once a week, I swear, on the Paradox forums, there's somebody asking if there is a difference between explorers and admirals and conquistadors and generals. And on multiple occasions, it's been documented that Paradox has said that in the code, there's no difference. Anything else showing or proving that they have different stats is confirmation bias. So, a simple request here, if you take Quest for the New World, just disable the General button and disable the Admiral button. Why? I mean, there's no advantage to a General if you have the ability to unlock Conquistadors. If you're unfamiliar with Conquistadors because you've never played a colonial nation or you've never taken this idea group, the only difference between them is that it allows you to move a army into Terra Incognita or move a navy into Terra Incognita. Now, if there was another way to solve it, for me, it would just be to just get rid of conquistadors and generals in general, or conquistadors and explorers, and just make it so that they have a tag on them that allows them to move into it. But at the very least, if it's going to stay in the game, make it so that there is no question. Just disable generals, disable admirals if you have that policy. It would alleviate a huge amount of confusion, and there's no purpose to it. So, that is number 10. Change number 9. So, in both Victoria 2 and I believe Crusader Kings 2, whenever you have a combat screen pop up that shows you how many troops you've lost, you can see, in EU4, you can see the amount of infantry that you lost, you can see the amount of cavalry, gained 0. Obviously, you can't gain cavalry, that'd be strange, but you can see the total numbers here. But what's a very useful number, and a number I always find myself mentally adding up, is the total number of troop death. I would like to see a total column. You know, in Victoria 2, it does it just like that. It has the infantry, cavalry, and artillery. It's the same unit types, but there's also a total column. Just do that so that we can see, like, okay, are we winning the manpower game? If we're fighting in a war, it's not just about winning battles and ticking up some war score. It's also about beating down the enemy's total manpower and army size. And sometimes, well, almost always, I'm very interested to see, like, how many troops did we actually kill? I can see here very easily it's 8,000. But later on in the game, when you've got big numbers and you've got to add up 3 separate numbers, it's just, again, one of those things that's tedious and unnecessary. There's no reason to not just have a total column. So that's change number 9. Change number 8. Or adjustment number 8, I suppose I should be calling them. If you set a navy to protect trade in a trade node, like, say, the English Channel, and then you build another navy, or later on, somehow you redirect a navy from somewhere else, and you also want to still increase your amount of trade power in that same trade node, and you tell them to protect trade in the English Channel again, instead of having one large, safer navy, a navy that would be, more secure in the event of an outbreak of war, more effective in combat, you will have 2 separate navies patrolling the same sea zone. Functionally, from a trade power status, this has no impact at all. If we look at the English Channel, we can see that our 2 navies, when they start actually protecting, I believe we have to wait to the end of the month for that to update, we're losing the 100 Years' War. It's unsurprising. You can see that we have 2 squads of 10 light ships each. Now, my request would be that if you have 2 navies, or 10 navies, and any number of navies that are protecting trade in the same trade node, that they should automatically dock and group. It takes 1 month, and it's a player action that it's tedious. It becomes incredibly tedious if you have a huge number of ships, and you're trying to protect 10 different sea zones, and as you're building them, you're adding a couple more ships to each sea zone, and it just doesn't add anything to the game. I would humbly request that navies that are patrolling or protecting trade in the same sea zone automatically combine into a singular navy. Adjustment number 7. So in the previous patch, 1.7, it used to be that when you hover over this annex vassal tooltip, it would tell you when you could annex the vassal. I cannot understand why, for the life of me, this was changed, but in 1.8 it was removed. You can no longer see when you are able to annex your vassal by hovering over the tooltip in the Influence Actions subgroup. You can still find out if you hover over this. You can see that they have been a vassal under us since 1 January 1399. Mentally, you add 10 years to that, and then you can say, okay, in 1409, I can annex this vassal. My request would be that in this tooltip, just reinstate the original tooltip, first off, and say that annexation cannot begin until, and then put the date, or alternatively, if this may be even more useful, annexation cannot happen until, for another 2.7 years, or whatever, 2 years, 500 days. That doesn't make sense. 2 years, 300 days. That type of thing. But this is the tooltip that you would expect to find information about annexing your vassal. It's the Annex Vassal button. Why it was moved is beyond me, but I would request that gets changed back. From a new player perspective, not knowing that you have to hover over here, it's just something that it doesn't add to the game. Adjustment number 6. So, in this war score screen, this screen here, you can see the participants on your side of the war, the participants on the enemy side of the war, and you have this little icon that tells you that you're not allowed to negotiate a separate peace with Armagnac, or Auvergne, or who else. You can see whether or not they're co-belligerent or not. This information is very useful. And on this screen, I think it's important to have all participants, because this is the war screen. However, in the peace deal screen, in patch 1.8, Paradox added in these side columns where you can see participants in the war. We're looking at the 100 Years' War right now. We can see that it's England versus all of these countries. Now, knowing the countries that are involved in the war on this screen doesn't really matter. That is what this is for. What I would ask is that on this peace deal screen, remove the countries which you are not allowed to have a separate peace with. There's no functional purpose to them being here. You can't click on them, and just being able to see that they are there is no different than seeing that they are here, or seeing that they are on the list here, where you can see that you are at war with, and then you see the list of people that you're at war with. What would be far more useful in my mind is the ability to say, okay, I can negotiate with France, and if I click one down, that's one of the people that's available for me to separate peace, that I could actually negotiate a separate peace with. Again, having all of these vassals and coalition members and anything else, it doesn't add anything to the game. It just is confusing, actually, to see a list of countries you're not able to negotiate with. And then also, I mean, it shows the countries that are, if we actually had allies, it would show countries that are over here, but I don't see any purpose to that really being there. Well, actually, no, I take that back. There is a purpose to it, because it shows the positives or minuses if the country would be happy with the peace deal. So that is useful. But people you can't negotiate a separate peace with, unless I'm just completely mistaken, I don't see any advantage to having them there. So that is an adjustment that I would like to see, is remove the countries you cannot negotiate with from the peace deal screen. Adjustment number 5. On the war score screen, we have quite a bit of information. We can see the participants, we can see information about their war exhaustion and stability, and their troop counts and all of these things, and then we can see the actual current war score. Now in Crusader Kings 2, it shows the current war score, but then there's also a summation of war score from occupation and then war score from battles. And I would humbly request that that be implemented in EU4. Instead of having to hover over the tooltip and see that the war score is made up of these components, show the two numbers and then still have this one as well. I would like to see at a glance how much war score is coming from occupation and how much war score is coming from battles. In the current state of the game, it does this weird thing where if you have less than 40 war score, you have to mentally add up the battles yourself, because it doesn't show war score from battles plus 40. But once it exceeds 40, they add in this tooltip this line on this list that says war score from battles plus 40, because it's saying that you can't have more than 40. So I almost imagine seeing something like a war score scale, like a war score slider that shows like war score from battles, -20, -15, or +20, and it could go all the way up to 40, all the way down to -40. That is the range that you can see from war score from battles. And then below that, you could see war score from occupation. And there is no real slider on that, but you can make it -100 to +100, and then have those there. And then if you still want to have everything in the tooltip, that's fine, but just make it so that the two entries are separate. I think that would be far more valuable versus having to hover over this and then mentally do the math yourself. Adjustment number 4. So when you declare a war on a country, you choose your Cassis Belly. And as the tooltips all tell us, you need to choose your Cassis Belly wisely. Because depending on the Cassis Belly that you take, you'll have modifiers to the aggressive expansion impact for doing things that are part of the war goal. You'll have modifiers to the amount of prestige you gain for doing these things, reduced diplo cost, reduced actual war score cost, etc. Depending on the war score, it vastly changes the way you can take land from the enemy country, whether it's a reconquest war, a conquest war, it could be imperialism, it could be a trade war, etc., etc. Now, the great thing is that when you're choosing the CB here, you can see all of these modifiers, and it's tremendously useful. But once you are at war, let's say, for instance, that we are looking at the 100 Years' War again, if we go to England, when you are negotiating, unless you just happen to know what the modifiers are, or you want to go look it up in the wiki, all that you can ever see is that it says Cassis Belly, claim on throne. It doesn't give us any more information. So this is a very minor change, but I would humbly request that in this screen somewhere, either in this tooltip or if you wanted to list it somewhere else, just, again, relist the things that this Cassis Belly gives reductions to. It doesn't need to be any different than the CB that we were looking at over here. It just has to show what the reductions are. That way a new player, someone who hasn't even learned of the wiki or doesn't have the Cassis Belly memorized by heart, doesn't have to go look it up just to know what they're allowed to take at a reduced cost. Adjustment number 3. So Paradox has done a fantastic job with tooltips in this game. It's a very complex game, and they make it so that it's very easy to understand where all the numbers come from, generally speaking. Now, most of the tooltips are really good, but there are a couple that I would really like to see changed. So before I show you this adjustment, I just want to give 2 quick examples of a good tooltip. Now, if you look at the unrest number, you can see that the current unrest in this province is 0.0%. A tooltip, meaning the thing that pops up when you hover over a number, shows you how you arrived at that number. It shows you more information about a piece of information that is readily available. So this is a good tooltip. It adds to the gameplay. You can see what you need at a glance, but you can see more if you're interested. Another good example is the province war score cost. At a glance, we can see 21%. That's exactly what I want to know. If I wanted to see how we got there, I can hover over it and see more information. Now this is the adjustment. This is a bad tooltip. This shows me nothing useful. All that it shows is a red arrow going down. What I would ask is that this be changed to a number, and then when you hover over it, you can see more information about it, such as you can gain 26.60 more war score by achieving the war goal. That's useful to know. But I would also ask, put in this tooltip the war goal. What is the war goal? Why can't we have it listed there? You can get 26.6 more war score by sieging the target, and then list the target, or whatever the target is, or by winning 80% of battles, or by winning 15 more battles, or something like that. But by and large, just having this negative arrow, red arrow or green arrow, is not useful. It should show like a number, like if the number is negative 1.6, put negative 1.6 right there, and then just show more information in the tooltip. You can still see it by hovering over here, and obviously you can tell that it is negative by seeing the red arrow, but the reason it's a bad tooltip is that you can't look at it at a glance. It doesn't tell you anything really at a glance. You have to hover over it to get the information you're looking for, which in my definition is a bad tooltip. Adjustment number 2. This is one of the most important to me in this current version of the game. In 1.8, Paradox added in the local autonomy builder menu. And it's useful because you can see at a glance which provinces have autonomy and what their unrest is if it's positive. But what I would ask is that make it so that on this unrest column you can actually see this expressed as a negative number. So the problem with it is that if we wanted to reduce the autonomy in Calais, let's go look at Calais, we can see that the actual autonomy, the actual revolt risk is at negative 1.92. Now another province where we have unrest would be like Normandy, might have a different number. And whether it's negative 1.92 or negative 12.92 is a big deal. Makes a huge difference in my decision making whether or not I want to actually reduce the autonomy in a province. So this 0 is completely useless to me as a number. All that it does is say that, okay, I have to manually look at every single province because I can't get the information that I need here. If instead it said unrest negative 2, unrest negative 12, I could easily say, okay, just from looking at this screen, I want to lower it here and I want to leave this one alone. But this 0% number doesn't make any sense. I've also noticed that if there's no unrest and if there's no autonomy, it doesn't list it at all on this screen, which is good. However, for some unknown reason, it still lists overseas colonies and provinces that have like autonomy that you have no control over. So, for instance, if you colonize something and it's still part of your country, it hasn't formed a colonial nation, the autonomy cannot be reduced below 75%, which means that you just have a province in the list that you can't do anything about. There's no purpose to having it on this list. So I'd ask for that to be removed. And then I haven't tested it myself, but I imagine it's the same if you're playing as, well, let's actually go check. We'll just guess and see if we can figure out the tag for Ming. Min is not the tag for Ming. I don't know what the tag is. Tag Oirat. They are Horde? I think they are. If you look at the autonomy list. Yeah, here, another great example. These provinces, Urzhar, for instance, these provinces cannot go below 25% due to being a Khanate. However, because they have positive autonomy, they are in the list. So let's say that we play and we have 500 provinces, then we're going to have a 500 province list of provinces that we can't actually change. It doesn't really serve any purpose. I just, again, if you cannot change the autonomy, if it cannot be reduced, I don't think it makes any sense to be on this list. But more importantly is showing the negative revolt risk. The number one adjustment that I would like to see in Europa Universalis IV right now is a minor change to the army template. The army builder is amazing. It is probably the best addition that was made to the game in 1.8, in my opinion. But what I constantly find myself doing is I'll create a template. I don't care what it's called, because all I really want to do is create an army. And so I'll choose the numbers, I'll pick the number of provinces, I'll save it, and I'll click it, and I'll build it. And the reason I like to do it that way is because they automatically rally to the province that you clicked on, which is fantastic. What I would like to see is if that functionality is already in the game, almost completely just built in. In Victoria 2, you can designate a province as a rally point, and then all created troops will go to that province. If I were to designate, say, Macedonia and Ankara as rally points, and I trained a unit here and a unit here, they pick the closest rally point as the location that they go to. So since they've kind of added in the ability to use rally points, I would just ask to make it a full-fledged feature. Add in rally points to the game. Make it so that we don't have to use the army designer to rally troops that are being created. That would just be the best adjustment to Europa Universalis IV. The ability to have rally points set just like in Victoria 2. Because again, what I'll do, rather than just like create more templates or train units individually, I'll just create a new template every single time. Every time. If I need 10 infantry and 7 cavalry, I'll make a new template just for that one time that I'm going to create it. And I'll change it by adding a space to the end. I don't care about the template name, I just want rally points. Again, I do want the stamp. I want to be able to say make 20 regiments of this type. But what I care about equally as much is the rally point. So that is the end of this video, Arumba's adjustments. I hope that you find the information useful, and hopefully, we'll see, cross your fingers, maybe Paradox will see this video, consider some of the information that I'm giving them, and maybe apply some or all of it. And if not, well, hey, I'm just giving my opinion on it. So thanks for watching, thanks Paradox for considering these options or changes, and if you do implement them, I will not be able to express how happy I am when that day comes. So thanks for watching, everyone. See you soon.